Welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who almost spent $122 on the Blu-ray or $56 on the DVD until he learned that this movie is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. It's John Levingood.
Dude, it is no joke. There have been like half a dozen times over the last 2 years I've looked this movie up, and every time it's like $100 used, $80 used.
Yeah. The best deal right now is $56 for a used DVD and $122 for the Blu-ray like multi-combo with the DVD.
Of a 1993 movie, which biggest bragging point is that it was Seth Green before he was famous and Clint Howard being ridiculous.
Yeah, it's I think it's a movie that's just you think it's been built up in people's imagination because they couldn't buy it. And then, I think I saw that. Oh, I need to see it. And then someone's trumpeting it.
Yeah, it's funny. So I saw Ticks probably in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't see it again for 20 years, right? Like a couple weeks ago. And this is like the opposite of the way things normally go. Now I love it. And I think back then it was just something I giggled at when I was sharing, a 6-pack of beer with my 15-year-old friend or something, but now I love it. And I love some bad movies, but I love it.
I looked up a lot of the people who worked on this, and so K&B was involved. Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger all worked on it. The visual effect, effects masters who have done countless effects in many great films. Also, Doug Bestwick, the guy who did stop motion on Evil Dead 2, Empire Strikes Back, Aliens, Beetlejuice, other types of like 3D motion, Blade, Ghostbusters, The Howling, Darkman, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Star Wars: A New Hope, and American Werewolf in London. This guy, Doug Bestwick, worked on this. So, and then I guess you add in the director who had experience with Hellraiser 2, Tony Randall. Mm-hmm. And then, the writer wrote Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Halo 4. He wrote episodes for Star Trek Enterprise and Star Wars Rebels. So this movie,
interesting mishmash of people.
I mean, this movie did, and most of the actors involved moved on to really good careers, or they stayed working for a long time. So this movie was this very tiny, 1993 direct-to-DVD VHS thing that had talent, except for the sound person behind the camera.
Yeah. Oh, you know what else? I guess, I say Seth Green before he was famous, but it had, Alfonso Ribeiro.
Yeah.
And this was in the middle of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
So that's probably what got people to really buy this, unless they already knew who Clint Howard was.
As Panic.
With the terrible, terrible, terrible name.
Yeah, who the first time. And I just want to say, real quick, throughout this movie, I'm going to be saying the words insects, bugs. I understand that there are 90,000 documented species of insects and bugs around, and so I'm not my myriapods, my cephalopods, my arachnids. I'm just going to use bugs or insects.
Fair.
So
Fair.
If you hear me say that a tick is not an arachnid but a bug, because a tick is technically an arachnid, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So if you hear me call it a bug, don't scream at your mic, because there's a lot to juggle here. And I googled everything to make sure that I knew that it was an arachnid, but I just want to say bugs and insects.
Nothing wrong with that. Bug is a fair word. Bug is like a creepy crawly, not really sure what it is, generalized term for, I'd say, anyone but an entomologist.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there we go. That's what, I knew I had to use that language with you, because I knew that you would,
Well, actually, it's a flibbity-flobbity, flibbity-floop.
Exactly. Oh, well, tell me more about that. Flibbity-flobbity, flibbity-floop. Were they indigenous to New Zealand?
Yeah.
They can grow to 3 feet long, can't they?
The 3 feet floop.
Yeah.
That's also known as the nope floop.
The nope floop. I heard you caught one.
A death floop.
Yeah, but when you catch it in New Zealand, you have to let it go.
It's catch and release floop policy.
But didn't they get into Latvia? And they're extremely
they're eating all the root vegetables there. They're pestiferous there.
Yeah, they're an invasive species. But since they're technically endangered, no one can touch them, but they're just munching their way through Latvia.
Poor Latvia.
Do you think they're going to put, in South Florida for a while, that if you caught a python, you got paid for it? Do you think they're going to do that for flibbity-flobbity, flibbity-floops in Latvia?
They should. They probably should. Especially if those things are anything like the buggy ticky things in this.
Yeah, oh my goodness. These buggy ticky things, they're mean. And they're literally on steroids.
Yeah. So, okay. Are we diving in?
Yeah.
Are we gonna?
Oh man, we're diving in like Indiana Jones' arm in Temple of Doom when he goes into that thing.
So this movie starts, right, with, like, when this movie starts, we're seeing, like, some kind of a machine running, right, in like, a barn or something. And this barn has something akin to a basement or something, right, under it, some underlevel. And this machine is releasing goo. I thought, for half the damn movie, I thought that was motor oil. Right? Because what else would it, like, I thought that, you know, like, the guy was just lubricating the cogs or the turbine and whatever this machine was, and it's Clint Howard. And I thought that Clint Howard at first, for like an hour, I thought that he was like a machinist hired or some kind of a maintenance guy / machinist doing something in there. And it's got this goop again that looks like you're pouring a quart when your oil's low. Except if it falls down the cracks in the floor and then it lands on something that looks like a larva of some sort, which ticks don't have, but it's okay, movie. I love you anyway.
Well, in this universe, they have them.
Right. In this universe, ticks have larvae that look like unsheathed testicles, an eyeball with the skin ripped off. I mean, they look weird.
Now,
it looks like an organ.
I have to say something. You mentioned goo, and there are a lot of squish noises in this movie.
So many squish noises.
Now I know why you love it. I mean, there are shots. There's a sound in this movie that's literally... It lands on a person's face. A larvae drops on someone's face and goes... How happy were you?
Dude, that was that big brain-shaped looking cocoon larval sac glob. Oh, that was great. I love those things. So you talked about all the effects people behind this, and we know Tony Randall, if for no other reason than from Hellraiser 2, he really likes gory, fleshy things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we see, I'm going to make up a number, but we might see these kind of cocoon-like things, right? These larval cocoon things in like 8 different scenes. But every time, it's not like a lot of B horror movies where you're basically seeing the exact same prop and they just placed it somewhere else. Every time, these look like new props presented in different ways, in different light. Sometimes they're pulsating, sometimes there are tons of them. Sometimes they damage one and it drains gobbledygook. And like, they always look different and they do different things with them. And I really appreciate what I call like the diversity of effects that we see. And just based on the cover of a 1993 direct-to-video movie, you'd assume it's something where you go the whole movie and you never see anything, and then in the last 5 minutes you see a monster once, you know?
Yeah, this is a movie, and Tony Randall also worked on Escape from New York and Galaxy of Terror, which is pretty
Galaxy
cool.
of Terror.
Yeah.
Now that is a gross 1981 movie.
He loves his stuff.
With Robert Englund before he did Freddy Krueger.
And so, like, this movie, I think they went really heavy on pre-pro in regards to the effects and the stop motion and the large creatures and the practical effects. But as far as sound and camera work, they hired good actors. They really did. And all these people are working actors. But the sound and camera work on this movie was second.
Oh, I mean, yeah. And normally, I'll sometimes notice what I would call great camera work or photography, but I seldom notice bad photography. I don't have the eye for that like you do. I just notice when something's like, holy crap, like what a cool shot.
Yeah. But
I don't necessarily notice all the middle and low ground. In this, there were shots from just like, did someone just set the camera on a chair?
Yep.
And right? You know what I'm talking about?
That's like very static shots. There's a scene where he walks. I'm nitpicky here, and these guys are effects guys who, a lot of times when stuntmen walk in, like stuntmen become directors or effects guys become directors, they don't focus on the camera because they've been so busy with the minutia of the effects. But there's a couple times where they just set a camera on like a chair and then let it roll, and it kind of took me in. The sound in this was pretty subpar, but eventually you kind of fall for how just weird it is. I mean, this is Deliverance meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre meets a bug movie.
Meets the cocoon scene from Gremlins. But no, so a lot of these shots were really bad. But again, the high pacing of the special effects and the non-redundancy of the special effects. That's the other thing. These ticks, we see them scrambling really fast. We see them scrambling slow enough that we can see them. We see them scrambling in stop motion. Sometimes something's just pulling them across the floor. Sometimes it's they pick one up and it's like animatronic.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of work behind this.
At one point, there's a big, probably like a stick puppeteered monster towards the end. Like, I can't get over how much I appreciate that in what is not an expensive movie.
Yeah, these guys, these visual effects guys, they come from really independent films. So you watch a lot of I don't know if you've watched it yet, but you watch these Nightmare on Elm Street documentaries or the Friday the 13th documentaries, and there wasn't much money. I mean, they had money, but these guys were running gun. They were not sleeping. They were rolling. So they're
making it up as they go.
Yeah, exactly.
The special effects.
Because, I mean, like they said, it's something new each time. So you take the same foundation in, but it's a new creature. So these guys are just, it was a 5-week shoot from what I read. I would say about 25 days. And I guarantee all that. I get that. They filmed the acting in 3 days. And then the rest of it was just bugs.
I believe that. A lot of this acting could have very well been one take. Yeah. No, unless someone sneezed in the middle of a line, and even then they'd probably keep it.
There is one scene in here that's kind of emotional. So I guess the plot of this movie is 6 kids who are kind of troubled kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go out into Big Bear in California with 2 adults just to do this retreat. And as this guy says it, there's this dude watching them, and he's basically saying, nature's the antagonist, but I don't think it's going to unite them because they're going to go back to their old ways of life that are adapted to outside. The older guy that came with him.
Dude, who, by the way, he's like narrating his journal. He is simply the boyfriend of the woman who put this together.
Yeah.
So the woman who put it together is a social worker, and this is just her boyfriend, and he's like narrating like some psychiatrist in The Exorcist or something.
So there's a scene where these kids, they're all from the city, so they don't really know about lighting a fire. And they light this fire that goes comically huge. And Charles runs out, and he just starts screaming at these kids. I mean, he's letting them have it, right? He's just the boyfriend of a social worker is just screaming at these kids. But I kind of love what the kids were saying. Alfonso, he's like, I've never lit a fire before. And then the other kid's like, don't look at me. I didn't do it.
Yeah, so, he actually said no one's ever taught us how to light a fire. And they're out there in the wilderness.
Yeah, and so I heard it, and I was like, oh, wow, I mean, these kids have a point. This guy went out there and lost it on them. And they're like, and then, of course, if you blame one of them, they're going to get mad because why are you blaming me? There's everyone else. So it turned into this interesting dynamic for about 3 seconds that perked my ears up. But then they were like, yeah, you're just too busy banging Holly. He's like, well, I'll teach you guys how to do a fire tomorrow because I'm busy now.
Right, you're busy trying to get it.
Yeah, it's just, who is this guy Charles? Like,
So I've seen it twice in a week, right, or in a couple weeks, and I don't think they ever said. I suspect that he's some dude working 80 hours a week in some accounting or law firm trying to make partners, so he's always crabby.
Yeah, just the classic overworked dad, because he has a daughter that he brings on this too.
Right, his daughter is there, but not because she's troubled. She's just there.
Yeah.
And that's Amy Dolenz, who it turns out is in a bunch of other horror movies, among which are Witchboard 2.
Oh, wait, is that Amy Dolenz? Or is that, I thought Dee Dee, the girlfriend from, the girl who was with Rome, wasn't that? And then Melissa.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. That's her. Yeah. That's her. But I thought his daughter was Dee Dee.
But all these people have acted, though.
Okay.
I had to get their names because I forgot their names.
Oh, I've got it for me. It's just the punk and his ditzy girlfriend or whatever. Yep. Wait. Okay. So when they drop these kids off,
I didn't get that scene.
When they drop the kids off, they're dropping them off somewhere where like the Terminator is trying to hide, John Connor from the T-1000 in that LA alley, what drainage ditch or something. It's like an underpass by a harbor.